So you know that look back at Cybertron's Hasbro exclusive Transformers in the Scout class size I did? Well, I only do 3 randoms a week, meaning I had to leave somebody out, and the one I left out was the very first of that variety, and I'm not one to leave anybody out of a party, so with a little bit of a delay, we're going to finish it off by looking at Cybertron Hardtop. Yep, this one is both interesting and not so interesting to talk about because it's actually a complete redo of Energon Bone Crusher, one of the Constructicon molds. Now, that means that the engineering is completely the same, but every part has been redone in order to craft the new robot and the new vehicle mode. It just transforms exactly the same way. And in this case, we go from a big bulldozer to something more of a dune buggy, even though this got turned into Swindle later on. It's not quite a Jeep, it's needs a few extra bits for that. You know what else it needs for having the name Hardtop? An actual top. This always strikes me strange. Like, this is very much a roll bar style, you know, that's what I mean. Like, it needs the name roll bar, basically. No, this was always a little bit weird as naming goes. So yeah, cast mostly in green plastic with some aqua blue and purple here and there. It's definitely an interesting color palette, clashing a little bit, but nothing we're not used to in Transformers, so it doesn't look too bad. I don't like how the purple pops through in some spots, just because of how the how the molding got laid out due to its original nature. It's a little bit frustrating. Kind of breaks some sections, like here in the hood as well as here in the side. This looks like he had a part replaced and just hasn't gotten it into the shop to repaint yet. Little bit messy looking, but beyond that, not too bad. You can definitely tell it has some of that residual design from the original Energon toy, and really wasn't quite made for the new Jeep/Dune buggy mode. The rear is mostly barren, with just these little struts hanging the wheels down into position. This was a lot bulkier on the original toy, if I remember correctly, so it hid this a lot better. Here, it's a little bit more noticeable, but being more of an off-road vehicle, something that's meant to bounce over dunes and such, it's pretty much what I would expect. It gets away with it just enough. I also always like the interesting shape it has to it. It kind of has this downslope to the rear, which is very subtle and always makes me think I haven't transformed it correctly. But I think I have. Paint-wise, not a whole lot going on here. We do have the floodlights up top in yellow and a silver that's traced along the top of them as well as along the roll bar, and a little bit of black here in the top along with the Decepticon emblem. You also get some more gunmetal gray here as the brush guard in the front. So not a whole lot of paint going on, not a whole lot, but we'll get some more once we get to robot mode. For the most part, pretty simple as far as vehicles go. Plenty of roll to them, at least. What about that big gun hanging off the top? All that purple plastic and a little bit of black. Yep, this is where the Cyber Key gimmick is. Now, here's the thing. I'm going to take his standard blue Earth key, and we're going to have to twist this to the side in order to demonstrate, because the flip effect won't happen if you have it straight forward, which is always an annoyance with this toy for me. So we're going to turn it that way, insert key, and are you ready for the amazement? No, that's it. If you blinked and you didn't catch what happened, that's what happened. Yeah, so this is probably my least favorite of all Cyber Key gimmicks. So we exchange this gun barrel for this gun barrel. So what we've basically done is gone from like assault rifle to sniper, which is okay, but this is really underwhelming considering all the other cool gimmicks we get out of the Scouts. The Scouts have the advantage of usually having their gimmick as separate components from the rest of them, so they can make whatever they really want, and they don't really have to resort to simple things like this, but unfortunately that was the case here. I don't know if that's because of the borrowed engineering or the fact that this was the first one out the gates and they didn't have a whole lot of time to perfect it, but either way, this basically is just a basic rifle with a big black chunk hanging off for the key to fit in. Always felt really, really cheap, but hey, it's just a Scout class toy. It's not like they cost that much to begin with. Alright, so let's get him transformed and see what we got in robot mode. Legs flip out, wheels flip up just like so. Nice, quick, and easy. All this comes out, folds up like so. You're gonna need to get the wheels out of the way to get them all the way down. Put that in position. All this flips forward to form the front belly. You click the waist in there and rotate around. Little adjustments. Chest flips up, arms flip down, and just like that, we have a robot. Very simple, but of course it's a scout class, so what do you expect? That's Hardtop in the robot mode. We see a lot more paint detail coming through, and quite a bit of color changing going on. It kind of gets a little bit weird once we get to this mode, but we'll cover that in due time. As usual, we're going to start at the head sculpt, where all the character and detail lies, and I gotta admit, his character is a little bit generic looking. He's got the shades thing going on, that bright blue kind of washes some of the detailing out of the helmet, but he doesn't have a whole lot going on anyway. It's rather smooth, and he's got this weird headphone thing going on, these side pieces that are black along the side of his head. That's a little strange, gives him a kind of an ear thing, but they don't really stand out too much, so it kind of gets a little bit forgotten about, I think. It's not the greatest of heads. He looks a wee bit generic, which is kind of unfortunate. But hey, he is supposed to be a simple little guy, a simple little trooper, and that is what he appears to be. Though he is fairly colorful for what he is. We get this weird mix of aqua, purple, and the green, but the aqua is much more dominant now. There's quite a bit more purple too. We've diminished that green quite a bit to almost a background color, especially when you take into account the black covering it up on the legs and a ton of gold covering it up on the arms. That gold was not there at all in vehicle mode, so it's kind of a cool little hidden color thing that they did. At the same time, it comes out of nowhere, and it's a really clashing color scheme. I don't think I was ever quite into the colors on this guy. There's just something about that bright blue that doesn't really seem to fit in, both with the Decepticon motif and just the overall aesthetic of the toy. There's too much purple and gold to pull it off. We looked at Short Round before, and he had similar colors, but proportionally they evened out a lot more than this one does. So it always seemed a little bit odd of a color scheme to me. That said, let's see, detailing wise, pretty plain all the way around. Again, I think this has to do with the fact that he was the first mold that they did completely new for the Cybertron line. He feels a little bit rushed, and you can see areas that Cybertron was pretty good about covering with some extra molding detail. Completely omitted here. Very flat. About the only real detailing you get are those little mold indentations that are kind of something that you see on standard molding in the first place. He does come off quite simple. He does come off, well, frankly, rushed, which is kind of the feel of the toy. I get the idea that Cybertron was just down on Scout class figures and they needed to whip something up, which resulted in this guy. So at the very least, he adds some variety, but no, visually he comes off kind of flat compared to the rest of the line. Articulation-wise, let's see how he stands up. Well, he's got a rotation at the neck. That's not bad. Ball joint at the shoulder? Yeah, that works well and good. A little bit stiff in some directions, but gets everything done, I suppose. 180-degree elbow bend, so that's not bad. He's got enough chunk just behind the elbow. It's a thick enough arm. It's a thick enough arm to where I don't really get... I really don't get that floaty elbow look that I hate so much out of it, so that works. That works okay. Waist joint, all the way around. That's good. Good. Ball joint in the hip. That's plenty of motion. 180-degree knee bend, or almost. Yeah. So he actually does have some decent bendability for his size, and ball joints in the spots where they are really important. So at the very least, while the guy is simple, he does carry over the articulation of Bone Crusher decently enough, and hey, he's not nearly as bulky or have as much chunk hanging off, so he actually does end up a little bit cleaner than that. I will give him that. He's quite the clean little mold. So with that, not a whole lot left to do, but put the gun in his hand, helps balance out some poses. Good. Thankfully, he's got some big feet on him, so he does do a manageable job of holding a pose and position. But I think that's about all there is to say about him. Hardtop is quite the simple little figure, not a whole lot going on, and from all directions just feels like something Hasbro had to rush out the door just to fill out the line, which is unfortunate because otherwise he definitely provides some color and vehicle variety to the line. Now, plenty of fans of the figure. I'm not saying anything terribly bad against the toy. I mean, he does have his merits, and he's not offensive in any way. He just doesn't come off as polished or refined as the other Cybertron Scout figures. In that world, he's unfortunately just kind of rushed feeling.